Today is the 31st of March, the day that Mario is to be publicly executed by Nintendo. Unlike many people, I am not surprised about this, and today I'd like to talk about why I'm not surprised, along with how I believe this can happen again. I'll lay it down immediately. The reason I am not surprised Nintendo is doing this is because of the contradiction of what Nintendo stated early in the Switch's life cycle, that there won't be a virtual console. Instead, they replaced the virtual console with Nintendo Switch Online service, giving us NES and SNES games for a subscription. They then contradicted themselves with Super Mario 3D All-Stars. The collection had Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy. The only game to have a previous release is Mario 64, and this is where I will draw my comparisons. Mario 64's previous release was through the Virtual Console to the Wii, and had no changes from the game released on the Nintendo 64. It was a straight port with button remapping to play on the Wii, and when we look at the Switch version in 3D All-Stars, it follows a similar path. The only noticeable change is a jump to 1080p at 60 frames per second, though the game still retains a 4:3 aspect ratio. Looking ahead at the other games, Sunshine and Galaxy, while they haven't had prior Virtual Console releases, they follow suit with Mario 64. Firstly, Super Mario Sunshine has had the most work done of all of these games. The game has been upscaled from 1080p 60 frames per second and has had a control change. The big issue with GameCube games is that the analog triggers that the GameCube had, which was used in Sunshine to control the flood on Mario's back, isn't present on the Switch version, and as such it was the largest change in 3D All-Stars. Ironically, the only update to 3D All-Stars was when the controls were updated to allow the original GameCube controls when the GameCube controller was plugged in, thus reversing everything they did. Secondly, Super Mario Galaxy has had a similar change with Sunshine. Upscaling to 1080p and a control update were the only changes. The motion controls during the Wii era are hard to replicate with the Joy-Cons, and as such, the pointer was replaced with gyro controls, though the Wii-style menus still remained, and even have the theme of the original operating system of the Wii. Overall, these three ports have had very minimal changes. These games loosely followed the format of the Virtual Console and is a contradiction to prior Nintendo statements. They gave us a collection of these three games, and they don't want to keep it up as it is a de facto Virtual Console port of these games. This is also evidenced by the game that was announced alongside 3D All-Stars, Super Mario 3D World, as it is not being pulled, though it too is a port, but it has an extra addition, Bowser's Fury. It is a new portion of the game and doesn't run in an emulator, which firmly plants it as a Switch game and would be put in the same category as Pikmin 3 Deluxe or Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. These Wii U games have had new additions from the original game, and it wouldn't be like these Virtual Console games. It doesn't contradict prior Nintendo statements, and I think this is a separation that Nintendo wants to make sure they don't have a clear Virtual Console. It is even more evident with the Skyward Sword port coming this summer, as it looks to be heavily changed from the Wii version of the game due to the error of motion controls previously mentioned with Mario Galaxy. In short, the new additions and heavy reworks of these games, alongside being outside of emulators, allows Nintendo to call these games their own versions, and not simple ports, which would separate these games and 3D All-Stars from each other. Therefore, Nintendo is removing 3D All-Stars and isn't removing these other ports, showing that Nintendo views these games as different, and I believe that this can happen again. We need to remember that Zelda's 30th anniversary is also this year, and if Nintendo does a similar collection for that anniversary, something like Majora's Mask, Ocarina of Time, and Wind Waker, I believe that this collection could fall to the same fate of the previous. It would have very few changes to the three games, and it would look like a Virtual Console port yet again, and would be removed in a similar fashion to the current. Now, you may ask, Zach, aren't you forgetting something? And why, yes, I am getting to it now. Artificial scarcity is one hell of a drug, and it helped the sales of 3D All-Stars. In December, it was reported to have sold 8.32 million copies worldwide, and in March, the game's physical sales spiked 267% in the UK alone. I believe this was simply to get people to buy the game, and it seemed to have worked, as it sold incredibly well for a Switch game. To demonstrate that Nintendo still dislikes the idea of a Virtual Console, look to the other games to disappear today, Fire Emblem. A fully localized version of the game released exclusively to Japan and finally in English to the West. Nintendo wouldn't just put it onto the Nintendo Switch Online service, as it cost money to localize these games, but it wouldn't leave it up, as previously mentioned, as the Virtual Console isn't something Nintendo would want to appear to exist on the Switch. To put a bow on this whole situation, I believe Nintendo used artificial scarcity to sell what would be a Virtual Console release of its most popular Mario titles for a few months and then remove them, because they wouldn't want a Virtual Console to truly be on the Switch. In doing so, they had it both ways, making money off of anyone that wanted these games while not having to create new portions of the Nintendo Switch Online service, and they profited well. It's a poor choice to make, and it has put a sour taste in many Nintendo fans' mouths. It is a shame Nintendo still has such an aversion to releasing a Virtual Console on the Nintendo Switch. But with that, leave your comments below on if you agree or disagree with removing 3D All-Stars from the Switch. And with that, consider liking and subscribing to the channel, and have a great day.